at the age of 13, working with the likes of Vogue, London Fashion Week, and Next. But then, at 25 years old, she was diagnosed with ADHD. Now, she's come to terms with that along an often very difficult journey, and she's now the director of a company called ADHD Works, helping young people, teachers, professionals, and companies understand and thrive with the condition. She's also the author of ADHD and A to Z. And Leanne has been talking to me about how she realised she had a neurological condition.
I knew that I was different growing up. I knew that I learned differently from other people in my class because I couldn't concentrate in class, but I could get quite good exam results by not doing very much. And my teacher asked the whole class if I cheated in my exam. So I knew there was something like different about how I was studying to other people, but I just thought that I was stupid in like this kind of unusual way. Because I did feel like I cheated in a way because I didn't know how I managed to get good grades and I didn't really feel like I understood what I was learning. And then once I graduated from university with a law degree that I didn't really know how I managed to get again, my life kind of fell apart and I just ended up traveling the world and like falling out with all of my friends and family and couldn't figure out what job to do. And it was just really chaotic and like drinking alcohol constantly. And I became quite suicidal and then ended up finally going to see like a proper psychiatrist because along those years I went to see doctors who told me that I was fine because I had a degree. And eventually I went to see the psychiatrist because I'd Googled what was happening to me and I came away with like a list of 10 different conditions, none of which were ADHD, but which I believed I had all of them. And the psychiatrist was like, no, you've just got ADHD, which I didn't even think was like a real condition at the time. So it's been a long way since then.
And if we may go back, I'm sorry that you've been through such an ordeal and I felt so low as well at different parts of your life. If we may just go back to school, yeah. Why do you feel like you were cheated? You know, explain how it feels so easy or, you know, not to get grades.
Yeah, like I couldn't concentrate in class at all, but I just was like looking out the window or I'd be like hiding earphones up my sleeves to like listen to music instead. Like I was always doing something like drawing or writing in the back of the book. So I knew that I wasn't like kind of concentrating in the same way as other people. I never did my homework. If I did it, it would be like on the way to school and in the car in the morning. So I didn't do the same way. And they say like people with ADHD are good at sprints, not marathons. So that's how I created it. Like I knew that I wasn't good at coursework or anything that I'd have to do over a long period of time. But if I had an exam, especially added on with the pressure of like knowing I hadn't learned anything all year, then I could teach myself the subject in like a week, like quite easily, just by like ADHD marathoning, like just staying awake for a lot of hours and concentrating on nothing else except that subject and writing it out over and over again and like doing it very, very quickly and like managing to learn everything. And then in the exam, I would write like 6 pages. So I could do exams really, really well, but I wasn't very good like afterwards. Like I couldn't really tell you what I'd written or like how I managed to get an A in that exam. So I felt like there was something like not right about how I'd managed to get those grades.
Mm. It's fascinating you talking us through that process and you mentioned that it had a significant impact on your relationships as well with family and friends. What happened there?
I think it was always quite hard for me. Like I sound a bit like a victim, but
no,
yeah, I was always like bullied and stuff at school. Just for being like, I was like, well, I'm really tall and like just stupid stuff like kids bully each other for, like having a lisp and things. So yeah, so I was like bullied throughout school and then, and I grew up in Cyprus as well. So it was like, I did complexities, but then when I graduated university, like it felt like everyone else that I knew was like going down a particular path of getting jobs like in offices and graduate schemes, which I've missed all of the deadlines for and didn't even realize I had to apply for. And everyone was like going down a certain path, and I was just like felt like my life was spiraling out of control. And my family as well, you know, they were like, why can't you just get a job? And I was like, hi, gonna book a flight to New Zealand. Oh, and I kept talking to people and being like, you know, and even like I would often like ask people that I knew for work experience I could go and try it out there, and then I would quit a few days later, and they might get annoyed at that. So I was quite unreliable back in those days. And my friends told me I basically would try to arrange to meet all of them at the same time, and forget that I'd like invited 10 different people to the same meeting. And they, yeah, I forgot. And then I would leave them. I would be like, I've got to go now, have fun. And I would just assume they'd all have fun together. I was very, very like chaotic.
It's quite funny when you say it like that, but at the time your friends must have been really worried as well about you.
Yeah, I think they were. Especially like my life was just like, and I was as well, because especially by the end of that period, like I would wake up in the morning and have no idea what I'd do by the end of the day. And when I went to see that psychiatrist, I was like about to book a flight to Mexico. Like, I know that I should not book a flight to Mexico. I was like, that is not the answer. So yeah, I think it was quite worrying for everyone. And then especially even once I was diagnosed, it was still quite worrying because no one really knew what ADHD was, and like the medication for that was like very complicated in the beginning as well. So it's quite stressful, and it's really stressful for people to go through, especially when they're adults, because it really throws your whole life into reflection, and you start questioning how it could have been different, and the people in your life, like, you know, have their own journeys of going through what they could have done differently. And
in what year did you receive your diagnosis, Leanne?
5 years ago.
Okay.
So 2018.
Right. 2018. And as you say, when you received that diagnosis, a lot of reflection, a lot of thinking back, a lot of shoulda, woulda, couldas, I guess. You know, what if things would have been different? Have you kind of come to a point of acceptance now?
Yeah, definitely. For me personally, I try not to look back too much. Well, I guess actually I wrote a book called ADHD and A to Z, which was me looking back, but with a sense of like acceptance and understanding. And I think writing that book actually really helped me to not be angry at people, you know, like my teacher that I just mentioned, like to kind of understand the perspectives that they're at. And especially like, you know, adults in the UK were not even diagnosable with ADHD until 2008. And I think for anyone listening in a similar boat, it's just good to remember that everyone is doing the best with what they have available to them at the time. And learning more about it yourself can help you to teach others as well, because like no one out there is like an expert in everything. So.
And it's interesting that you missed all your deadlines for your graduate schemes and your office jobs and your works placements, because clearly you're an entrepreneur, really. That's where you've put your focus and your attention. You've got your own business. It's called ADHD Works. What does that do?
We do coaching, ADHD coaching. We've got training for companies. Actually, it's very funny. As you said that, I was laughing. I had a call with a law firm today and a client of theirs that I'm doing an event with, but I interviewed for them. When I finally managed to apply for training contracts, I had like interviews with them and didn't get it. And now I'm like working with them in a very different capacity as a trainer for their clients. So yeah, it's funny how things work out in the future. But
it's great.
Yeah, it's nice. I definitely couldn't have expected this 10 years ago.
And look at me now. Absolutely. Revel in it, Leanne.
Yeah. And we run all different kinds of activity. Like we've got ADHD retreat. We're running an ADHD festival next week, like an in real life event in London with hopefully 100 people that have all got ADHD to come, and it's called Secret Sunrise. Just like a silent disco in the morning. Should be really fun, and do like group coaching with lots and lots of people in one go. Yeah, like I've been kind of in setting up the company, I just wanted other people to not go through what I've been through. And for me personally, having this ADHD coaching through the government have got a resource called Access to Work, which can pay for people to have coaching and other support like administrative support and technology and software if you've got a health condition that impacts you at work. That was the most life-changing thing for me, because I met someone that had a brain like mine and I didn't feel so like hopeless about the future. I was like, oh, that like, and that woman was an entrepreneur as well. And I was like, oh, I can do my own things. I don't have to like fit into society and do what everyone else is doing. I didn't really realize it was an option for me to do that. So
And there is safety in numbers, isn't there? So I guess with these events, in having like-minded people to connect with, it reaffirms your identity and makes you feel part of something.
Yeah, got friends. Yeah, that's a really nice thing. It's like it's a really lonely experience, especially growing up and like having ADHD, because it does feel a bit like your brain is on fire, but everyone else thinks you're fine. It's all invisible, but like when you can meet other people, it's so amazing. I run these courses. We've just trained up 25 ADHD coaches all around the world. And they were saying like they didn't expect to come there. They expected to do ADHD coaching training, but not to like have met such an amazing community of like lifelong friends. Because that's what happens when you meet other people that have had similar experiences to you and can understand you regardless of like their position in life. It's just a really powerful thing to feel like you're not so alone out there.
It's funny you talk about loneliness on social media now. ADHD videos are doing rather well. In fact, they've become kind of a trend, haven't they now? A social trend, the ADHD videos, although a lot of the information can be misleading.
Yeah, I presented to the World Health Organization on this pretty much because and I wrote a book last year called The Reality Manifesto, because I think that social media is it's great because on the one hand, you've got a lot of awareness and a lot of accessibility, which has meant that traditionally underrepresented groups, especially in relation to like neurodiversity, like Black people and women and girls are now learning that they too could be neurodivergent and getting the support they need. But on the other hand, like anybody can basically make memes and content and present that as real information, and people are being really exploited because, for example, in the UK, my GP's waiting list is 7 years long to get an ADHD assessment. So if you're faced with that, or like, TikTok that would just show you all of these adverts basically that are targeted to you because I know that you're considering whether you have ADHD or not, it's a really dangerous place to be. So I try to, especially with the book, I try to make sure like there's something out there that's like, the book is based on like research and science and my own experiences as well, but it is a really dangerous world to be out there, especially given that we are basically living in an attention economy, and on social media, like it's in people's interests to make you think certain ways and to get your attention. So
all the algorithms, and how fabulous that you presented that to the World Health Organization. That must have been an incredible experience.
Yeah, it was. It was a very amazing experience. It was very surreal, but it was something I was really passionate about because, like I mentioned to you, like having the undiagnosed ADHD really threatened my life. Like if I hadn't had that ADHD diagnosis, which I was really privileged to be able to pay for, only because I was suicidal, so I didn't think I'd need the money, I wouldn't be here talking to you. And so many other people are not in that position. And I said to them, like, you can't expect people to pay that much money. Like if the kind of resources aren't there for people officially, then they'll be left to really open to exploitation. And I think it's really important to like raise awareness of that and how dangerous it can be, especially in weeks like Neurodiversity Week, where everyone's like, oh, woohoo, like, and there are lots of brilliant benefits to being neurodivergent, but it doesn't come without its challenges, which can be really serious. And that's what I think can get really, really minimized on social media with these like very short videos or being like, woohoo, join the community. Like, yeah, on the one hand, it's great to find people that can relate to you. But on the other hand, like it's really important not to forget that like people with who are experiencing really serious challenges get the help that they need through the proper channels that they need to get that help from.
Yeah, and
I think that would
trusted
change.
health professionals, and knowing what you know now, you're a published author, you help people with ADHD. I wonder how you deal with that now in your adult life. I'm thinking if somebody listening now is thinking, I've just received an ADHD diagnosis, how do I use this and navigate it at work, at school, in my day-to-day life? What advice would you give them?
Read ADHD and A to Z.
Your book. Fine. Okay. That's one. That's a starting point.
That was pretty much what
Have
I
you got
wrote
any
it.
like tips for somebody who's now
Yeah.
trying to navigate that?
Definitely apply for access to work. The government scheme I mentioned. That's usually what I tell. Like people message me a lot that I've read the book and they say apply for access to work because it takes a few months, but once it comes through, it's the most helpful, amazing resource ever to be able to pay for things like coaching and like administrative support to help you do the things that like your brain just is not designed to do, which is really life changing. And then moreover, more generally speaking, I think learn what your strengths are, understand the bits of you that, the things that you're good at, like don't focus on the challenges so much as like the strengths. Look at like how you want your life to be. I always ask people in coaching, like, what would you do if you won the lottery? And often like it's a very, very different life to the one they're living, like completely